We'll do it live. We'll do it live. Whatever happened to Bill O'Reilly? Or as I like to call him, Bill O'Reilly. Whatever happened to that guy? Do you drive a Tesla? Yeah, you know, the electric car. Who's Nikola Tesla? This guy? This handsome fella? Oh, we forgot about him. Did you know that Elon Musk, that his maternal grandfather, his mom's dad, I think that's how it works, was a technocrat in Canada? What's a technocrat, you might ask? Well, in the late 19 teens, a group of intellectuals met and they came up with something called Technocracy Incorporated. Technocracy Incorporated, a very different concept from the technocracy and the technocrats that has been used by conspiracy theorists today. Technocracy Incorporated, in particular, was a group of intellectuals that decided that as of 1913, one machine could replace several thousand human beings when it came to its ability to produce. So our physical labor became less useful, less effective as one machine. And they looked at this and they said, well, our system is based on scarcity. It's based on human labor. And now that we have this abundance in our society today, where we have one machine that can replace several thousand human beings in using their labor, and we have resources now that we can tap into in North America. They actually did a study of North American resources and showed that there was more than enough to sustain an abundance for all. Well, they came up with this concept of changing our price system, as they called it, from a scarcity-based system to a system of total abundance, post-scarcity economics. This concept was wildly accepted by the masses. In fact, it was the largest growing social movement well into the 1920s. The largest growing social movement that you've never heard of. The reason for that, like so many movements, it was suppressed. I can get into who exactly suppressed it, but it was big media at that time, the newspapers. So the newspapers, the media, the government, they colluded with one another to suppress and put an end to this rapidly growing social movement known as Technocracy Incorporated. In Canada, they were trying to suppress it to the point where they made it illegal to teach or to organize technocracy. There were a few people who were actually arrested for sharing technocracy, one of which is Elon Musk's grandfather, his mother's father. Isn't that fascinating? I bet you never heard that before. Why is this relevant? Well, it's not necessarily relevant to Elon, because who knows at this point whether or not his intentions are pure. I can't sit here and judge. However, what I will say is that there is a tie-in to Tesla. So if you research Tesla and you understand the potentiality of some of his inventions, you'll understand that an abundance of energy was there for the taking. And to this day, we have yet to see true free energy. It's ironic that Tesla, the car company, exploits resources to provide a less than efficient use of technology for energy. When in reality, the abundance of energy in our world today, Nikola Tesla, the OG, was very much interested in tapping into. He wanted to figure out, how do we provide something that physicists say is over unity? Well, there's perhaps several roads to do so, but just like Technocracy Incorporated, the group that wanted to proliferate the idea that we could operate in an abundance-based system, a post-scarcity system, just like they were suppressed, Nikola Tesla's energy ideas were suppressed as well for the most part. They were exploited by some, used in applications where it did not interfere, and by others, completely suppressed. As long as it was within the confines of the matrix, we exploited the hell out of Nikola's genius, right? As long as it didn't contradict too much with what else was going on. So we exploited the heck out of what we wanted to, and then the rest of it was suppressed. And now we live in a world where it's 2025 nearly, and we still have people going hungry. Going back to technocracy, in the 1920s, we had people growing gardens in their yards, which was a great initiative, freedom gardens during the Great Depression. We had people doing whatever they could, waiting in lines for bread, food lines. People were hungry. But yet, for the first time ever, we had this newfound ability, thanks to technology, to produce more food than we could consume. So much so, they were actually paying farmers to burn crops. They were actually paying dairy farmers to pour milk down the drain. What sense does that make? Well, when you have a system that's based on scarcity as a means of determining value, and you have newfound abundance, so much so where it contradicts that mechanism giving it value, you're left with a juxtaposition that is only going to, within the mindset that we've had to experience for many years prior to some of these modern day technological advancements, it only leads to us saying, well, I guess we have to pour milk down the drain. I guess we have to burn crops. I guess we have to make things that are going to be thrown out after a couple uses. And we've seen the controlled obsolescence continue to this day. We still buy razor blades that we can only use once, hence why I look like this, maybe, I guess. I got tired of buying razor blades that I can only use once or twice. Might as well just grow your beard out. But back in the day, they were making quality products. And there's some documentaries out on this topic that I urge everyone to watch. For a greater understanding of how this not only bleeds into our economic system and our lives today, but also into our mindsets, I highly recommend a lecture that was done at the Free Your Mind conference called Scarcity-Based Economics. Hold on, no. What was the name of it? Scarcity-Based Mind Control. Scarcity-Based Mind Control and the Liberation of the Mind, Body, and Spirit was the title. If you go on YouTube and you look for Scarcity-Based Mind Control and the Liberation of the Mind, Body, and Spirit, you'll find a lecture from Free Your Mind in 2016, I believe, from a guy by the name of Bob Tuskin that spells out just how deep this scarcity control goes. So, who is Nikola Tesla? It's not the guy behind the car company. How do we live in a world where we have this abundance? Well, the conclusion that I came to is I'm tired of depending on the powers that shouldn't be to suddenly say, you know what? I'm going to take a U-turn here and go back to basics and actually allow for the abundance to be proliferated. No, I'm not going to depend on them. I'm going to create abundance in my own life, an abundance of not only resources in my own life, whether that be food, where I'm not dependent on our scarcity system to bring me food in, from trucks that are vulnerable, from an electric system perhaps that's vulnerable. I'm not going to depend on any of that. I'm going to depend on finding abundance on a more microscopic level in my own life. And that's what growing freedom is, right? And I'm still in the process of putting together this kind of life's work, if you will, that at some point here in the near future, hopefully, I'll be releasing the documentary. I've shot about 65% of it at this point. It's been about 8 years in the making. And it's the obvious conclusion that we have where we got to take the power out of the hands of those that are only going to leave us vulnerable. They're only going to leave us in a position where we're naked, and put that power back into our own hands. Again, how do we create abundance in our own lives? And it's not just abundance of resources. It could be an abundance of love. How do you find an abundance of love in your own life? How do you create an abundance of happiness, the pursuit of happiness in your own life? What are some tools to do that? Some practical tools. How do you find an abundance of health in your own life? Right? These are all questions that are important to answer, that are at the heart of what we all want. We all want abundance, not just abundance of material goods, an abundance of knowledge, because knowledge is power. And ignorance, it's not bliss. Ignorance is a curse. It's easy to put your head in the sand and choose ignorance, sure. But knowledge, that's powerful. How do you find an abundance of safety, security? I know that one of the ways in which I find an abundance of safety and security is not by depending on the police state. Yeah. Depend on the guys with shiny badges and costumes who trample all over your rights and your life and are nowhere to be found when the shit hits the fan. I can't remember the last time they were there when they needed to be. And yes, I've seen some examples of first responders that are there when they need to be. In fact, I watched a video last night of a law enforcement officer that dragged away a guy who was electrocuted underneath a down line, and I cried because seeing someone selflessly go and save another person, knowing that they could possibly lose their lives, is touching. And I applaud that person, not as a police officer, but as a human being with chutzpah, with the bravery that they exhibited. You know, geez, what an amazing, touching video that was to see that man do that. And that man happened to be a cop, so good for him. But finding an abundance of safety and security in my own life, I'm not depending on them. No, I have bullets and guns that are going to protect me and my family and my livestock and my property. Okay. That's going to be there when I need it to create the safety and security that I need in my life. Is it going to stop everything from possibly threatening me? No. I'm not going to take down tanks. I'm not of the mindset where I'm really even preparing for that. I'll be honest with you. It's not a fight that I think is realistically going to come up. I might be naive on that one, but I think that at the end of the day, there's going to be so many people that have chosen to be dependent on the scarcity-based system where the powers that shouldn't be, they'll be busy enough with the FEMA camps housing those people that are going to line up one by one to get in. They'll be busy enough with those sheeple, if you will, where the guy who's out in the country who's not signing up for it is not necessarily interfering with any of what they're doing, then I don't think they're going to care. I really don't. And again, I could be naive about that. I go back and forth on that thought. I'd like to think that if I'm minding my own business and whatnot, that I'll be fine. But then again, there's plenty of examples of people minding their own business where our sovereignty is trampled all over by bureaucrats and those that, for whatever reason, want to be a big brother nanny state that tramples on our individual rights. So abundance. Let's get abundance in our lives. Abundance of safety, abundance of health. I'm not going to depend on the scarcity-based healthcare system for that. I'm not going to depend on big pharma for that abundance of health. I'm going to find that abundance of health through other means, of course, right? And the list goes on and on. So Bob Tuskin here. I just wanted to get a rant out. I'm about to be interviewed on a great podcast, and he's working on a documentary as well. My old friend Loomis. Let's see here. What is the name of Loomis's podcast? Give me a second. I'm looking at my device here. Loomis is Chanted Down Podcast. So check out Chanted Down Podcast wherever you get your podcast. He's about to have me on, so I wanted to come on my platform and give a quick plug to Chant It Down. I was on Republic Broadcasting yesterday with Steve Stars. First time doing some live radio in a while. It was great to take some calls and get back into the swing of things. So I'm gonna, continue to inch my way back into the swing of things here, because I think that the common sense solutions that I've long preached are just as desperately needed today. I don't have all the answers, but I certainly enjoy getting my voice out there and having the dialogue and the conversation to hopefully impact the lives of others and work with others to get to that abundance that we all want, the abundance of love. I want an abundance of creativity in my life with music and laughter. I like jokes. I don't know about you, but I like to laugh. It's one of the things maybe some of us, if we get too far down the rabbit hole, we forget what the hell we're fighting for. We're fighting to laugh and not give a shit about certain things. We're fighting to live our lives in a happy way. So don't forget to laugh. Don't forget to smile. Don't forget these things, because if you do, then the powers that shouldn't be are clearly winning in that regard. So definitely don't forget those things, and we'll stay at it. All right, folks. I don't have a website these days. I guess I have this YouTube channel still. We had a YouTube channel with something like 80,000 subscribers. I took that down years ago. Took down our Facebook pages years ago. I'm not on Facebook anymore. They took me off Facebook. The page is still up there for Bob Tuskin, but they took me off. So I guess I've been mostly off the grid, but nonetheless, I'm still here, and I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. All right. I love you. An abundance of love to you, and we'll talk soon. Check me out on Chant It Down. See ya. Peace.